Hi, this is Andy Sear with the University of Utah Alumni Association. We are welcoming you today to our panel discussion with our professional career coaches from our career network. Today we've got an interesting topic for you, and it can be a little bit of a scary topic. We are going to talk about layoffs. And if any of you have ever been laid off, you know, it can be a pretty frightening experience, especially if it catches you off guard and unexpectedly. I know that's happened to me before, so it's an interesting experience. Let me tell you, the coaches that we have 4 coaches that we're going to be talking to today. They're part of our referral network at the University of Utah Alumni Association. And they are Pat Vaughn, Julio Garreau, Melissa Ceballos, and Sarah Bowman. And they're all professional coaches, and they've agreed to be part of our U Alumni Career Coaches Referral Network. They're independent, but they've all agreed to give U alums a full kind of introduction to what they do, you know, like a 10, 15, 20-minute talk personally, phone or Zoom. And then from then, they will coach you for 2 sessions. And they've agreed to give all U alums a discounted rate of $150, which is actually a pretty good discount. And here's a special thing too, if you're a graduate of the class of 2020, or you've graduated within the last year, you're actually still eligible for free career coaching from the U's Career and Professional Development Center. So there's a link in the YouTube description, but it's careers.utah.edu. But let's introduce our career coaching network. We've got Pat Vaughn, first of all, of Talent Guru, and she has 30 years of professional experience in talent acquisition and management experience. She's worked with Disney, with Cisco Systems, a lot of big corporations, but she also specializes in working with people in the arts or an artistic and creative background, and also people who've worked internationally. So I just want to introduce Pat Vaughn.
Thank you so much, Andy. It's a pleasure to be here again. It's always so great.
And thanks. And Julio Garreau is the founder of Human Architecture. It's an executive coaching and business consulting firm. And Julio, he calls himself the human architect. And the reason he says that is he's got this ability to look at individuals and organizations, and instead of them operating by circumstance, he gets them to operate by design. And he's also an author, a public speaker, and a coach. Julio believes in a world that is full of infinite possibilities, and he encourages his clients to see opportunities where others might only observe obstacles. So welcome, Julio.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here.
And finally, third, we have Melissa Ceballos, and she has nearly 20 years of experience in HR and talent acquisition, in sales, marketing, business development. She has a true passion to help people. Everything she does is focused on developing a strong personal relationship with her clients. And I believe too that Melissa worked at the U in our Career and Professional Development Center. And so way back when, and she's a graduate of the U. So we welcome Melissa.
Thank you, Andy. So great to be here.
And finally, Sarah Bowman of the Bowman Group. Sarah likes to work one-on-one with clients as they pursue their career goals and particularly advancement in their particular job, improving communication skills, transitioning into a new profession, or just finding, you know, better job satisfaction. So one of the aspects that Sarah is really good at is talking about the psychological aspects of a career change. And she's got some valuable advice in regards to, you know, how you take care of yourself during some of these really challenging times, and particularly if the company or organization you're working for is going through a rough patch, and, you know, how do you prepare yourself mentally for that? I'm going to try to tailor some of these questions that we have today for our coaches, kind of based on their expertise. And I encourage you all to send in your questions. you can send them in on the chat feature on YouTube, and they'll be sent over to me. So we'll try to get to those. We've already had some questions sent in. We'll get to at the end when folks registered for the for today's panel discussion. But really today, two main topics we're kind of going to be dealing with, and one is preparing for a potential layoff, you know, and how you prepare both mentally and just the practical aspects of that. And then what do you do if you find yourself in a layoff? What if it's happened, and how do you react to it? What steps do you take next? I wanted to start off with Julio. And Julio, what is it in an organization if you're working, and let's put it in the context of working remotely now, but also obviously some people are working at a specific work location. Well, what is it that you should be looking for that's a sign that maybe a layoff is coming?
Well, you know, we've been working remotely for the last 4 months, but you used to go to work every day to a job. So you need to remember what's going on before we went into this jail process that we have right now, being limited to what we do and where we go. So in all the companies, is conversations are going on. The good conversations, they say, they usually happen around the water cooler or the coffee machine. And you hear a lot of good information there about what the company is doing, how it's being managed, how we're doing with the money. There's a lot of information there that you get from the company. And you need to remember those conversations that you witnessed and you participated on. Now you are in your house working from there. It's a little bit more difficult for you to find out what's going on. The thing is to ask questions. You have to ask questions with your coworkers, with the people, with your manager, and the people that you deal with every day. And you need to, I don't know, most of us have learned through the years how to read other people's ideas, emotions. What are other people's thinking? It's very easy to tell when somebody is distancing from you. When they're distancing from you, not giving you enough information, not responding quickly to you, what you need to do, you need to be, I will become suspicious if that happened to me. And I'll be very aware of that. Now, don't freak out and think that something bad is going to happen, but you need to find out what's going on. And because we don't know what's going to happen. None of us know what is going to happen in 6 months. So we need to be prepared. You need to be a good Boy Scout, always ready to be able to do what it might have to need to be done. And what are the things that you need to prepare? You need to gather information. You need to learn, you know, how to put a presentation, how to present yourself. You know, it's very important that in your resume, in the first page, you put what you do or what you have done. A lot of people go telling you all the things. It really doesn't say anything to the person who's going to hire you. You need to say specifically what you want. I listened this in the radio yesterday. They were talking about this situation, and somebody wanted to be a welder, and he had a nice resume. And one day he showed it to his brother-in-law, and his brother-in-law said to him, "Hey, here nowhere says anything you want to be a welder. If you want to be a welder, you need to let the people, hey, I want to be a welder." That is a good example of what happens sometimes. We can have these documents or this resume put together thinking that's going to look good. But if you don't communicate in what you need to communicate, then you taking yourself out of the game.
Got it. Well, thank you. Thanks, Julio. Sorry about that. No, I appreciate that. And yeah, that is very important. You gotta tell people right up front what you want to do, where you want to be. Pat, I was going to ask you let's just say you're getting a pretty heavy sign that the layoffs are coming, or you're in an industry that's obviously going through layoffs. What are some practical things you can do to prepare?
Well, Andy, those are great questions. And I loved what Julio said about the Boy Scouts. Julio, happen to have been a Girl Scout, and Girl Scouts are always prepared. And why you are prepared is because you don't have a crystal ball. But we do know that if you fail to plan, you need to plan to fail. So this is about not to scare anybody. It's really about knowing that there are certain things that you can do now, whether you get laid off or not, to really position you in a great place so that you can move on and move forward. I want to go very briefly over a few 5 steps that I think are really essential for you to do. The first one is to gather documents. Now, we are all lax as employees, but you should have a hard copy of your employee handbook handy. You should have and know where your offer letter is, and you should be able to access that information. Sometimes layoffs happen very quickly, and you don't have access to go back to your computer and get that information. Get it now. Make sure that you review those documents. Look at your PTO policy, your vacation, holiday, sick leave. What is your company's policy on paying that out upon separation? Every company is different, and they will follow that. Make sure you know the agreements that you have signed. Do you have a confidentiality agreement? Do you have a non-compete clause? Most important is to really look at and review your benefit structure. Do you have an HSA? Do you have a conventional medical plan? Where are you on your deductible? If you have met your deductible for the year, the best advice I can give to you is if you have any elective procedures coming up, do them now. If you have a flex plan, for example, do you know that you can get those procedures done now? If you were to get laid off, they would still be covered for you. That's great preparation. Same with dental. If you've met your deductible, get your dental work done, get your vision done. And if you have pet insurance, make sure that you take Sparky to the vet as well. And then you really want to look at things like your vesting, your wealth building opportunities, your 401k, how are you vested and what happens upon separation? Profit sharing and bonus. You need to know where you are so that should a layoff happen for you, you are prepared to move very quickly on to the next step for yourself, and or you're also prepared to do some negotiation if that door is open for you. So those are the things that I really, really advocate. And oh, by the way, just in case, clean out your desk, because it's not inconceivable that you are called into a room and you never get to go back to your desk and someone else will clean it out for you. Take some time and clean it now. Thanks, Andy.
Okay, thanks, Pat. Yeah, it's interesting. It's a scary thing, but companies do layoffs in different ways, and they have different ways of doing it. So, but those are really good, solid tips. And what I wanted to ask Sarah about are some of the things you can do for yourself and mentally to prepare, because there's one thing about, having all that information and having your contacts and things, but what about yourself, your soul, your mindset?
Yeah. So I'll give you an answer in 2 parts. The first part, what to do if you think bad news is coming, and then the second part, if it actually happens. If you suspect that you are about to be laid off, one of my favorite resources that I refer my clients to is Option B by Adam Grant and Sheryl Sandberg. It's a book about resilience. It's written by Facebook's COO and a world-renowned organizational behavior psychologist. It's a great resource for how to make it through difficult times. And it's a good reminder that you are a multifaceted person, that your career isn't the only thing that defines you, and that it also has a lot of really great coping techniques for how to make it through and how to grieve a loss and move on. I think I've talked about this before, but the other thing I'd say to prepare yourself is role play. It sounds really cheesy, and it is. But it's really important, because when you role play, you are able to pay attention to things that your body does. Like, do you get blurred vision? Do you have elevated heart rate? Do you sweat? Does your blood pressure increase? Do you hyperventilate? Those are all biofeedback cues that when you role play, you can pay attention a little bit to how your body responds. And then because it's in muscle memory, when you do go through the actual experience, you should be able to control your response better. You'll know what coping mechanisms work great for you, and you'll have that to rely back on. The only other thing that I would say is, if you are proactive about asking the people in your management chain, ask frank and honest questions. Be very upfront and say, you know, this is what I'm concerned about. Can you please just give me an honest assessment of whether or not this is a possibility? Be professional about it. Don't be pushy about it. But you'll feel more confident, and consequently, you'll be able to be more resilient, and you'll be able to cope better if you're proactive about those few things you can control. And having honest and uncomfortable conversations is one of those few things you can control. So now what to do if it does happen? In those first few moments when you hear the bad news, try your best to stay calm. You can use basic anxiety coping techniques like deep breathing or counting backwards. The other crucial thing to remember, do not drive home in a state of elevated emotion. Sit in your car until you feel calm enough to drive, or get an Uber. Just don't drive when you're feeling incredibly stressed, because your judgment and your perception skills are impaired in those moments, and driving is dangerous in those scenarios. Another thing, I think I end up talking about this every time we meet, but I'll say it again, self-care is mandatory. It's as much cleaning your home and running errands as it is taking a bubble bath. It's as much cleaning out your fridge as it is taking yourself out for ice cream. I kind of think of this as treating yourself like your own teenage kid, and make yourself eat your vegetables and your dessert. A big part of self-care is exercise. We really need the hormones that are produced by exercise: endorphins, dopamine, serotonin, norepinephrine, and BDNF. Those hormones will counteract the cortisol and adrenaline that your body creates during a state of elevated stress. They'll also help you stave off any depressive episode if you're prone to depression. All of that combines to make it easier for you to mentally cope with the stressful experience that you're going through. And then the last thing I'll mention is just pay attention to where your body carries stress, and do your best to keep that area relaxed. Like if you carry tension in your shoulders and neck, ask your partner for a quick shoulder rub. If you find that you're clenching your jaw and have tooth pain, you can sleep with a mouth guard or visit your dentist to see what they would suggest.
That's great, Sarah. Thank you. And I think what's nice too about some of those tips are that they're just good self-care tips that we should be using every day, right? Because we're always going to hit some kind of stressful situation, and there are ways to manage that. And those are all really good, but they're particularly good in a high stress situation like a layoff. So thank you. Next thing I want to talk about is I want to ask Melissa to talk about the financial ramifications, and maybe, you know, how you should be prepared financially now in case you think something's going to happen, and then what to do financially if you did get laid off. What are some of the things you can do in terms of accessing money or planning out a budget or that kind of thing? How can you be prepared financially?
Yes, Andy, thanks so much. And honestly, I think for anyone who's experienced a layoff or a separation from a company, finances can be the number one stressor that they're going through. It's really a matter of like, okay, where is my next paycheck going to come from? And how am I going to make whatever liquid assets or savings I have last from point A to point Z when I land in my next career? So really, if you can be proactive and think about these things ahead of time, it is going to relieve a lot of stress if and when that day comes that you get news that, you know, you are going to be laid off or position eliminated. So coming from kind of the financial planning, retirement planning industry, I do want to, make the disclaimer first and foremost that I'm not a licensed advisor, so I'm not licensed to give advice. But I think in terms of best practices and tips that I've, gotten in the 5 years that I've been in this industry, when it comes to, what you can do to make your finances last and what you can do to prepare. In our world, we always say that it is a best practice to have 3 to 6 months, minimally 6 months of your salary saved for emergency, right? And this is something that's in a savings account or that is liquid that you have access to. So like I said, 3 months minimum, 6 months ideally. And that is something that you can pull from, so like, okay, I'm out of a job, I'm unemployed. I have 3 months of savings that will give me a paycheck. And, and this gives you comfort to know that I don't need to rush into my next job. I can take the next 3 months and be very thoughtful about what I want to do, what organization I want to work for. And so that just gives you that safety net and that relief to know that, okay, we're going to be okay until this next job lands. Some things to consider and I loved what Pat said about really being prepared and knowing what your company policies are. And if you are going to be let go, what can you exhaust first? Looking at your PTO payouts or vacation payouts. Does the company policy allow me to get a payout? And if you've built up, 2 weeks of vacation or up to 30 days, that will give you a month's worth of income before having to worry about where your next paycheck will come from. So that's a great resource. Filing for unemployment, and this is working in conjunction with any severance payout, understanding that you will not be eligible for unemployment until your severance has been exhausted. So keeping that in mind. And then, when you really start to get in and think about, okay, I don't know where, the next paycheck will come from. Let's think about some budgeting aspects, really thinking about where you can minimize expenses on a day-to-day basis and, keeping things in mind. Okay, I can cut my cell phone bill plan. Maybe you're on an unlimited plan. Maybe you reduce that so you're paying a lower, monthly cell phone bill, cutting out cable or satellite or cutting out your Netflix or Amazon, things that are just adding up that can allow you to have a little bit of relief during this time. Maybe getting creative and going through storage and thinking of items that you have to sell. You can actually put these items up on KSL or eBay or sites like Nextdoor or OfferUp that have no fees that, maybe you have an old couch that's just sitting in the garage, or maybe you have clothes or, items that are just sitting there that you can actually make some money off of and gain some, resources that way. I do want to make everyone aware that, right now during these times due to COVID, I always say, a last resort should really be pulling out of your 401k because there is that 10% early withdrawal penalty. But right now, due to COVID, it is important that people are aware that there is a coronavirus disaster declaration exemption, which if you're qualified, you can actually not have that 10% penalty and withdraw early from your 401k. And when I say early, that means prior to 59 and a half. So the qualifying criteria means that, one, you've been diagnosed with COVID-19 or you've had a spouse or dependent that has been diagnosed with COVID. The second criteria is that you're experiencing financial hardship or adversity related to effects of the virus, such as furloughs, layoffs, reduced working hours, lost business, or other factors just determined by the U.S. Treasury. So I encourage people that, if 401k is an option where you have to pull money to survive, that you do consider that exemption that will relieve you of that 10% penalty. So those are just some things that I would recommend people look at when it comes to their finances.
It's hugely helpful. Thank you, Melissa.
Andy, I would love to just pop in here for a second and just say, I think the points that Melissa has made are just excellent. And some of us are glued to our TV, just watching what the Senate and the House are going to do about passage of a extended CARES Act. And so if you really get in touch with your unemployment compensation in Utah, it's the Utah Department of Workforce Services. You can not only find lots of information on the CARES Act and other types of financial assistance that is available to you during this time specifically of COVID. So a lot is happening in it, and you really want to do some homework. You can also go on that website in Utah and find out what your unemployment would be should you need or have the right time to apply for it. It's a great resource.
Thanks, Pat. Hey, Pat, what's the URL for that? Do you have that in front of you?
I do. It's a real easy one, actually. It's jobs.utah.gov. jobs.utah.gov, and that'll take you directly to the homepage. The Department of Labor also has a lot of information. That's dol.gov, I think. It's dol.gov, and they will list information by state for you. So for those listeners who happen to be in Utah, you can get that information through the Department of Labor.
Excellent. Thank you. Thanks for that. Up-to-date information. That's very helpful. Julio, so I'm going to ask you a question.
Let me add something to what. Can you hear me? Can you hear me now? Good. So one thing that we have no address is your family. You got to go home and tell somebody, I'm going to lose my job. That is like a 5-pound hammer on the head of your spouse. Women are very protective of security for the family, and it can really create a major situation in the family. You need to be able to tell the truth. You be able to ensure her that things are going to be okay, that you have a plan of action. You may have to ask for her cooperation on certain things. If we're talking about budgeting, she will have to budget to be able to meet the new budget that you want to have. You need to, if you have teenagers, they need to know what's going to happen. Even 12-year-olds, 10-year-olds, daddy doesn't have a job. How you explain that to the kids? So you have to be prepared on that area too, how you want to have these conversations, how you're going to manage, and how you're going to give them the idea that it's secure, that they're safe, and that things are going to be okay.
Yeah, no, that's good. And I think it's important to mention that it's, it could be husband, wife, partner, anybody. You're going to have somebody you're going to be telling, a family member, and you need to think about the ramifications of that and that's also, I think, from anyone's point of view, telling a partner that you've lost your livelihood, and it's a hard thing to do because it's almost like admitting failure or something, even if it has nothing to do with you and it's completely COVID related and kind of the cosmic 2x4 hits you. But I think, it can be testing of a relationship. But I also think that, like you said, it's just important to be honest and truthful, and also ask for help, ask for suggestions. And that's one of the things I wanted to ask you was, Julio, was, who do you call? So you call your family member, you call your partner, you call a significant other, but who else do you call, like in a career aspect? Who do you immediately go to and say, hey, this just happened to me, what do I do next?
Well, you can go to people that you have worked with before, associates, all the businesses you during the work that you had, you met many people, and those people, maybe they are not in the same situation. That company is not in the same situation that you're in, and have a conversation, an honest conversation. Listen, I'm gonna lose my job, or I lost my job. I'm looking for a new position. Is any opportunity in your company? That's something that it can be done. Talk to your family. Talk to your family, because listen, it's all about the connections that you can create, and the connections that you already have, and the connections that you can create. Don't be afraid to speak. You have to be courageous. You have to be courageous and tell the truth. And listen, it's a lot of people in this situation. It's not that you committed a crime and you got fired because you didn't do your job. This is something that's happening that you cannot control. The owner of the company, you work with the company, you work for it, they cannot control what is going to happen. So it's nothing to be ashamed. But as men, we feel ashamed. How dare me lose my job? You always think that I would be the last person they're going to terminate in this company, but it is what it is, and you have to be able to be courageous and speak out loud of what's going on. Talk to your family, talk to your parents. That, like, Melissa was saying about money. Do your parents have money? Can they support you for a while? Your wife's family. You need to go to every single resource can be available to you. Every single resource, not only the governmental resources, but any person in the world that can give you a hand. You need to talk to them and see what you can get from them. Don't be ashamed. Be proud. Be proud of who you are.
Okay, that's good. Keep the chin up, right, Julio?
And that's a really good point, Andy. As we were talking earlier, no one is exempt. It's interesting, very often people feel that they're in a critical position for the company. I think you would be surprised that there is no level within an organization and no position that is really safe from this. There's no reason to be ever embarrassed. It's just about being prepared.
No, absolutely. Good point. Especially now, because there's so much out of control, out of everyone's control. And so the thing that we can control is how we react to something, right? So I think that's really important. Now, we've got some questions that came in from folks that registered, and I want to get to those before we wrap up. But one of our participants who's watching asked the question, I worry if I move to a company, I am first in line for a layoff. Is that usually the case? I mean, or should that keep me from looking for a new job? Pat, I was going to throw that to you.
Thank you, Andy. LIFO exists, last in, first out. But having said that, I think you really have to look at what is the industry. So if you're moving from a call center job representative to another call center representative with not a move to a more strategic position, it is likely that LIFO could affect that decision. But if you're moving into a career slot, a subject matter expert, especially where the company has been looking for that position for a long time, LIFO really doesn't exist that much. It's really about positions, the essentialness of the position, and much less about how long you've been in a particular job. I have found. Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's good. Well, that does, it kind of makes me want to jump to another question we have on the list, which was, and maybe Julio, you could answer this. What's the best way to make myself so valuable that my company doesn't want to let me go? I mean, what are the things you can do, just briefly, that create, a sense of, hey, we can't let this person go because he or she is just adding too much value to our organization? What's a good way to kind of put yourself in that position? Well,
two things in here. You cannot make yourself valuable a week before you want to lay off. If they're going to lay you off in a week, there's nothing you can do. This is the thing, that when we have jobs, we get comfortable in the job, and eventually we just perform the job. We are not looking for new ideas. We are not communicating with management. We are not bringing value to the company every single day. That has to happen. And if you have a job, that's what you have to be doing. You cannot do that in the last minute. Now, you can offer, like I said the other day in a conversation we have, you can offer to the company, listen, I love to work here. I'm willing to do whatever it takes to be able to be here. I'm willing to review the contract agreement I have with the company. If maybe lowering your pay a little bit or your benefits a little bit, it can secure you a job, I will do that. Because it's easy to work with these people, they already know me, and later on build up again than just go in the street and go look for a new job. That would be my reaction. If I can stay here, I will offer wherever I can. I want to become a partner with you. I don't want to be just an employee. I want to be a partner where I'm going to provide something for the company. I think that will work very well.
That's good advice, Julio. That is good. I want to go down this list. We have time for just a few more questions, but another question that was sent in, Sarah, I'm going to throw this one to you. Can you provide advice on how to shift to a new field or position? So this is somebody, obviously they're, looking just for tips to shift to, well, it's a new field. So that's obviously, a fairly good sized jump.
Sure. I'll sum this up as be creative and get aggressive. Recognize that you're taking a risk when you switch fields entirely. So you need to be innovative about the way that you pursue that new path for yourself. Be prepared to bang down that door. Network. That seems to be the thing that my clients haven't really been doing and that they had the most questions on. Use resources like LinkedIn, and I'll make a plug here for the Alumni Association's Alumni Fire. You can find the link on the Alumni Association's website. It's a great resource if you're trying to network in a new field. The search options are fantastic, and it's a soft landing. Because someone's already signed up for Alumni Fire, that it's a soft place for you to land and for you to ask for help for somebody that's already in your field, or in the field that you want to be, rather. I'll echo what Julio said a moment ago. Make sure you consider positions that are that might be entry level. If you can take a pay cut, be willing to take a pay cut. Your experience will always come with you. So even if you do take that pay cut initially, you're going to make it up in the long run. You'll be able to rise in the ranks a lot faster than other entry level employees who are coming straight out of college. So don't be scared to take that risk. If you're thinking about a big change in your career, now is a great time to do it.
Oh, that's good. Yeah, there's a saying I always liked that I've always liked. It's leap and the net will appear. Sometimes you have to take that risk, knowing that there's something else you really want, and sometimes you just got to take the leap. But it's very good, obviously, to have as many connections and networks to drive your success on that. And I also want to thank you, Sarah, for mentioning Alumni Fire. Thanks for promoting that, because we found that a lot of alums, it's a really easy platform to use. If you want to look it up, it's uofu.alumnifire.com, uofu.alumnifire.com, and you can sign up. It's just for University of Utah alums. It's a kind of a grassroots network, but you can easily search out other alums, and also students can use it, and young alums can use it to get mentoring from their fellow alums. And the beauty of it is that people have already signed up and said they'll volunteer. They've already raised their hand and said, "Hey, I want to help out." So it's a great platform, and Sarah, thank you for mentioning that. I appreciate it. I think we have time for one last question here. I'd like to follow up, and maybe a couple of you could chime in on this, about LinkedIn. And I think LinkedIn is important. We could do a whole panel discussion just on LinkedIn, but LinkedIn is another useful platform, obviously, like Alumni Fire. What's nice about Alumni Fire is it's kind of a closed community of you alums. LinkedIn is it's a bigger world, and sometimes you get more kind of sales calls and things like that on it. But the great thing about it is it's just a huge network. So I was wondering, Melissa, and anybody else who wants to chime in, are endorsements important on LinkedIn? I mean, from a recruiter standpoint, I'd like to know how recruiters and employers are using LinkedIn, and what's really important to see on LinkedIn that makes you look valuable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think anything that you can have on LinkedIn to show value and show a skill set is going to be helpful. Every recruiter is different in terms of the way they look at a resume or the way they really go and delve into your LinkedIn profile. But it's there. So my recommendation is to take advantage of it. And if you can get an endorsement, great. LinkedIn is a little bit different now in terms of endorsements and endorsing a skill set. You used to be able to go and request friends or colleagues to endorse you in a particular skill, but now you have to actually go through and do an assessment and take a quiz to get a badge to get a skill endorsed on LinkedIn. But in terms of like a recommendation, that's a great section on your LinkedIn profile to be able to go and get a reference or a recommendation from a previous manager or a colleague or a professional in the community that's going to say great things about you. I know as a recruiter, I love looking at the recommendations and seeing what people are saying about you in how you are in your industry or how you work with people. So I think take advantage of those tools absolutely on LinkedIn.
With regards to LinkedIn, I think sometimes a very undervalued asset to LinkedIn is actually the group participation. So when I have been heavily involved in recruiting and I look up a profile, I look to see what groups they participate in. And that tells me not only sometimes what their personal interests are, but also it really tells me if they are indeed dedicated to the industry that they are in, because they are actually actively participating in groups. So that's a nice hint, and that's a great way, just like Alumni Fire. It's a soft landing. It's people who are welcoming you in because you have a mutual interest. It's a nice networking tool.
Andy?
Yes, I'm muted.
Another thing that I want to mention is when we discussed it earlier, what I can do to be able to be more valuable. Have you ever been asked by somebody that does business with your company, would you come to work for me? I love you to come to work for me. For me, always has been like that. When I was in the military, I got very high in the military because I have commanders that they wanted to have me in their unit. They would do anything to be able to transfer me to a different position. Why? Because they knew what I was able to do, what I was capable to do, and what I have done in leadership. So if anybody, the idea for you now will be start today, whether you get terminated or not. Am I performing in a way that people look at me and they turn heads to look at me and say, how can I get this person to come to work for me? If you can have people that can do that, you're in the right place. You have no problem getting anywhere. But like I say, people get comfortable in the job and people does a work enough, just enough, so they don't get fired. No offense to anybody, but think about it. People that work in human resources, you know that. They work only enough so I don't get fired. Think about it.
Okay, sorry. Having mute issues today. Julio, that's a very good point. I think that, people being impressed by what you do and what you can do are really important, but more importantly, not being comfortable at this point, because I think if there's anything I've gotten from today and from hearing from all of you is that, and from listening to the news, that change, particularly now, is inevitable. It's always been inevitable, but it's particularly daily change is here. Our world has changed. It will never snap back to what it was. We have to get used to change and embrace it and jump into it because it's happening whether we like it or not. And I would just urge everyone watching to think about that and to be prepared for change and to be very open to it and look at the possibilities that change brings. I wanted to thank our career coaches. I think they've had some great insights today. And what I urge you to do is if you look at the registration, in the chat on YouTube, or if you go to alumni.utah.edu and go to our career tab, you can find the URL and links. Go to our career tab and you can find our different career coaches and you can ask them to follow up with you on their tips. Some of them have some lists of tips they can actually email you. about some of the things they talked about today. So I urge you to talk to them. Thank you again for watching. Look for another career event. We're trying to do these on the last Wednesday of every month. So next Wednesday, August 26th, last Wednesday in August, look for another event coming up then. Thank you all again for watching. Have a good one.